Hi everybody, welcome to the Business in the Community Diversity Benchmarking webinar. My name is Priya Mitchell and I am one of the diversity advisors here at Business in the Community, and I work on the race, gender, age and well-being campaigns.
Good afternoon everyone. I am Thomas Gahoon Albert. I manage the Diversity Benchmark and Knowledge Resources for the Diversity Campaigns. Welcome to our benchmarking webinar.
Before we get started, just a few words about today's webinar. We will be introducing you to the Web Benchmark service and the benefits of benchmarking today. We'll also be explaining how it works and introduce you to ProBench, our online benchmarking portal. We will be speaking for about 30 minutes, but we'll take a few breaks to ask questions. You can also send us questions at any time during the webinar. To send us a question, just click the Questions tab on the right side of your screen. If you have any technical difficulties, please email Sana at sana.butt@bitc.org.uk. We will also have some time at the end of the session for any additional questions not covered, and we will be circulating the slides at the end of the webinar.
Thanks, Priya. Right, so on to business. For those of you not familiar with Business in the Community, we are a business-led charity with a unique ability to convene the most senior business leaders from UK and global companies. We engage over 330 senior business leaders from UK-based companies in our campaign and regional leadership teams and on our board of trustee directors. We are one of the Prince's Charities, a group of not-for-profit organisations of which the Prince of Wales is president.
As the Prince's Responsible Business Network, we work in partnership with businesses to create a fairer society and a more sustainable future. We are member-led, and as well as the opportunity to become members of BITC, we offer separate race, gender, and well-being campaign memberships. We have over 25 years of history of campaigning in these areas, and our members themselves are very diverse. We have all sectors represented across our membership base, and there's huge variety in terms of organizational culture, knowledge, and challenges. Our members all have different ways of working, needs, and priorities, but we offer a very bespoke service through our team of specialist diversity advisors. The race, gender, and well-being campaigns have around 340 memberships right now, spread across 200 organizations. With a team of over 15 diversity experts, we have 25 years history of campaigning in these areas. In addition to diversity advisors, members also have access to our communications and events teams, as well as our researchers, directors, benchmarking, and knowledge teams. We work with our members in many and varied ways, some of which are shown in this wheel here. We wouldn't really have time today to go over all the aspects, but we will leave this on the screen for a moment just to give you an idea of the variety of services we offer, all of which are included in your membership. The Diversity Benchmark is a part of this offer.
Right, so I thought we'd start with a quick poll before we get into the Diversity Benchmark service. We asked 70 BITC organizations whether they are currently or have recently done an equal pay audit. So what percentage do you think have done or are currently doing a pay audit? Please click on the poll that's appearing on your screen now to give your answer. All right, we've got most of you have responded. If you answered 66% or thereabouts, you are correct. 66% of organizations are currently or have done an equal pay audit. However, only 14% have published their audit results in the public domain with some surrounding narrative, and only 7% have published data-rich information. So this is really about the transparency in equal pay reporting, which has become quite a topical issue of late. We're going to do another poll quickly, see how this one suits you. What percentage of executive board memberships are held by ethnic minorities? Take a guess and answer on the poll on your screen. What percentage of executive board memberships are held by ethnic minorities? Right, the answer is 3.3% of board members are ethnic minorities, not white. That breaks down into 1.4% for BAME women and 1.9% for BAME men. And really, this is talking about board diversity. It's been a very topical issue in recent years, particularly for gender diversity on boards. And there's been enormous improvements and strides made in that area, although a lot still needs to be done. But certainly on the ethnic diversity side, well, as you can see from the data, there's still huge strides to be made. Very low board diversity for ethnicity. The last piece of insight I want to show you before we get into the benchmark, and all this data is drawn from the benchmark. This chart shows the percentage of BAME and white candidates at each stage of the recruitment process. As you can see, 22% of applicants are from BAME candidates and 60% of applicants are from white candidates. However, when you're looking at hires, and that's over on the right-hand side, only 13% are ethnic minorities compared with 65% for white candidates. So to varying degrees, this pattern is seen in all sectors and in all the years we have been running the benchmark. Moving through the recruitment process from applied to shortlisted to hired, BAME candidates are being selected out and white candidates are being selected in. And there you can see in the chart that gap increasing as you move through the process. This finding is also supported by Baroness Ruby McGregor-Smith's review, which found similar trends. Priya works with benchmarking businesses and organizations all the time. So Priya, what do they tell you about the benefits they gain from benchmarking?
Yes, Thomas. Over the years that I have been a diversity advisor, I've actually seen members use the diversity benchmark for a variety of purposes. I mean, some use it for internal insight and analysis. This means that they use the benchmark to understand their organization's workplace diversity dynamics, while others actually use it for peer comparison, which means they want to understand how their organization compares to their competitors and peers. You could also use the benchmark to gain external recognition and achievement. So, for example, our platinum, gold, silver, and bronze winners receive a BITC planter, press release, as well as a certificate, which they sometimes use to publicize their participation and results. Finally, most members use the benchmark for the action planning and advisory element. So, in their feedback report, organizations receive guidance in achieving their own diversity and inclusion objectives and targets, as well as their overall benchmark results. The briefing, meeting, and action planning is actually included in the offer. But I just wanted to ask you something, Thomas, and I'm sure everyone else would like to know, what is the benchmark actually and how does it work?
Thanks, Priya. Let me explain. The Business in the Community Diversity Benchmark measures age, gender, and race workplace diversity and inclusion. We offer two kinds of benchmarks, a workplace data benchmark and a policies and practices benchmark. The workplace data benchmark, also known as Part 1, asks about key measures of workplace diversity. It asks for quantitative numbers, the percentage of your workforce that is male and female, recruitment and progression rates, and so on. I have a slide a little bit later on that will list all the different topics that the survey asks about. The race recruitment chart I showed you earlier is drawn from the workplace data benchmark. The policies and practices benchmark asks about exactly that. What steps is your organization taking to improve diversity in your organization? The survey consists of tick boxes and narrative. We also ask you to upload one or two pieces of supporting documentation, for example, your business case for diversity and inclusion, if you have one. The narrative element has word limits, so typically these are around 200 to 300 words, and sometimes they are shorter. And together, workplace data plus policies and practices are what we call the complete benchmark, and they give a comprehensive picture of diversity and inclusion in your organization.
Thank you. But tell me, to benchmark, do organizations have to do the whole thing? I mean, do they have to do the workplace data survey and the policies and practices survey?
No, participants can do workplace data only, or they can do workplace data and the policies and practices. However, you can't do only policies and practices. To do policies and practices, you have to do the workplace data as well. The reason for this is that policies and practices ask about the actions your organization is taking that account for the outcomes that you see in the workplace data. In that sense, the workplace data benchmark indicates the effectiveness of the policies and practices piece, and therefore require you to do both together if you're going to do policies and practices. Another point to make is that we offer 3 separate workplace data benchmarks for age, gender, and for race. And you can benchmark with any or all of these characteristics, so any combination of these 3, 1 or both or 3 of them. On the policies and practices side, you can benchmark with race or gender or both. We are still developing an age policies and practices benchmark, as age is still a fairly new area for us and for the diversity agenda more widely.
That makes a lot of sense. Can you tell us what topics do the benchmark surveys cover?
Right, so this is that slide I referred to. They cover a lot. It's more like what we don't cover. In the workplace data, we cover workforce profile. We ask about recruitment. We ask about progression, employee turnover, employee engagement. We ask about absence rates, performance appraisal, career development. We ask about agile and flexible work. We ask about parental leave, including shared parental leave. We ask about pay gaps, pay and reward and bonus pay and so on. And we ask about bullying and harassment. So those are the topics that are covered in the workplace data benchmark. On the policies and practices side, we ask about leadership, business case and strategy. We ask about recruitment. We ask about career development policies. We ask about employee engagement and employee network groups and how you're engaging with your network groups on the policy side. We ask about line managers' roles in creating an inclusive culture, so what policies you have that support line managers. We ask about shared parental leave, although this is only in the gender survey. We don't ask about shared parental leave in the race survey. We ask about pay and reward, equal pay, pay audits, and that's some of that data that I showed you earlier is drawn from this question. We ask about bullying and harassment policies and reporting processes and so on. We ask about flexible and agile working, and we have a section on supplier diversity and procurement.
That's very comprehensive. So tell me, Thomas, how do participants actually submit all this information?
Yeah, good question. All benchmarking is done online through a secure platform called ProBench. This is a screen grab from ProBench. It shows question 2 in the gender workplace data benchmark. Question 2 asks about gender representation at different levels in your organization. So it's small, so to make it bigger. So we ask about the number of women and men that are senior managers, and other employees. When you are done, and once you've entered data into all the fields, you simply click confirm and next at the bottom of the screen and go to the next question. And that will take you to question 3, and you can click confirm and next and so on, and you can move through the survey like that. You can also move backwards through the survey, and there is a little drop-down menu so you can jump around in the survey to go to the different questions. You can also save your submission and log out, come back a day, a week, or a month later, pick up on it and carry on working on it again. And when you're ready, you click the submit button on the right-hand side. That displays on every page, and that will submit your survey. Right, this is a screen grab from the Policies and Practices benchmark. It shows part of question 15 on pay and reward policies. And as you can see, you simply tick all that apply. At the bottom, we ask for a web link where you have published results of your equal pay audits. And you just put that web link in there, and we would then check that and verify the link. For other questions, you might ask for a bit of narrative, and it would simply be a block like that, and 200 to 200 word limit, and you'd enter your narrative and move on to the next question.
Great, it all seems very easy. We are going to take a few questions now. Just to remind participants today, you can send us your questions by typing them into the messaging space on your webinar screen. Thomas, while we're waiting for the questions, I'm sure many are wondering, is there any guidance at all for organizations who want to do the benchmark? For example, maybe some guidance that tells them who to count as a senior manager and who to count as a manager?
Yeah, that's a good question, and there definitely is. We give participants a document pack that includes the complete questionnaires as well as guidance on how to complete the surveys, and that guidance includes definitions and everything else that you would need to complete the surveys.
Some listeners may also be wondering, is the benchmark confidential and how secure is their data?
All data submitted is treated as business-sensitive information and handled completely confidentially. We issue participants with unique login details, and we do not store any passwords. So we don't store passwords, but no passwords to steal. ProBench is a secure platform. We've been working with organizations, companies in the UK, some of the UK's biggest employers, for years and for decades, and we've got an established track record of handling business-sensitive information and a good reputation for that, and it's entirely secure. Right, do we have any questions? I don't think so. All right, Priya, moving on then, can you then tell us a little bit about how much does benchmarking cost?
A very important question. So, the workplace data surveys are completely free. So any organization with a UK presence can benchmark with any of the 3 diversity strands: race, gender, and age. If you operate globally, we ask that you benchmark only your UK workforce. There is, however, a fee for the policies and practices benchmark for race and gender. Now, this is actually because assessment, preparing written feedbacks and recommendations, as well as the action planning meeting, all take considerable resource. However, just to remind you once again, benchmarking is always free for members of the race and gender campaigns.
Thanks, Priya. Our members do consistently tell us that benchmarking represents very good value for money. So just quickly, on that point of members, can you quickly just tell us exactly what membership means?
Gladly. So there are 2 levels of membership to the diversity campaigns. One of them is core and the other is champion. As a core member, you will get a dedicated diversity advisor who will provide you with bespoke support and advice. You will also, of course, get access to the benchmarking survey and member-only resources, as well as access to leading-edge research. We also offer members access to inspiring and informative events, as well as the opportunity to network with your peers. As a champion member, you will get the added value of enhanced level of diversity advisor support, as well as profiling and sponsorship opportunities, access to exclusive events, and access to leadership team places. Now, coming to the cost of membership, it's as follows on the screen. So, it's £3,500 for a single core membership to any of the diversity campaigns, £2,800 if you are already a member of BITC or if you join any 2 campaigns, £7,000 for joint core membership of all 3 diversity campaigns, $10,500 for a single champion membership to any of the diversity campaigns, and $6,500 for a place on a single leadership team on any of the diversity campaigns. But again, to clarify, if you are a member of the race and or the gender campaigns, your corresponding policies and practices benchmark is included in your membership. And to remember, the workplace data benchmark is always free for any organization with a UK presence. One of the questions we often get asked is what you actually get after benchmarking. So, as a part of your benchmark, what you will get is a data-rich benchmark report. This here on the screen is a typical table from a gender workplace data benchmark showing you benchmarks for manager-level recruitment. The rows in the table show the percentage of applicants who were women, the percentage of shortlisted candidates who were women, and the percentage of hires who were women. They also show you the data for male candidates for the same reporting period. Now notice the column headings on the top. The first column is your data. As you can see, your benchmark report compares your data with industry competitors and peers, public and private sector participants, as well as all the benchmark participants. Now here we have an example from the Policies and Practices benchmark. This table shows the benchmarks for question 17, which is about career development pathways. The first column shows whether your organization is doing any work at all around this policy. The other columns show the percentage of organizations who are doing these policy actions, again broken down by industry, public, private sector, and all benchmark participants. Participants who complete the whole benchmark, which means those who do the workplace data as well as the policies and practices benchmark, get some additional extras. We've already talked about the data-rich benchmark reports. If you complete the whole submission, you also get written feedback and recommendations, as well as a banding. Now, this could be platinum, gold, silver, bronze, or unbanded. You will also get a planter that you can use to showcase your achievements, and we highly encourage participants to use your benchmark planters on your websites, intranet, business cards, email footers, and office mugs. And finally, you will get an action planning consultation with one of our diversity advisors. And the purpose of this meeting really is to transform the insights and lessons drawn from your benchmark report into tangible actions that will help you deliver your diversity and inclusion objectives. But Thomas, I now have a question for you. How long do you think it takes to do a benchmark?
Priya, this question comes up a lot. Unfortunately, there is not a single answer. It really depends on many considerations that vary considerably between different participants. For example, who holds the information you need to answer the survey questions? How accessible is this information? How similar is your data collection to the data categories we ask about in the benchmark surveys? And of course, whether you're benchmarking one or more characteristics. These will all make a difference to how long it takes. However, we do have some tips that will help ensure your preparation proceeds smoothly with the minimum of time and effort. Let me run through a couple of these. The first is to make sure someone is responsible for the benchmark submission. So have somebody who's going to own it. Consider setting benchmarking as an objective for your organization. This will help gain senior buy-in and resources and stimulates focus and momentum. It also ensures recognition for delivery and outcomes. Look through all the questions, and including the guidance and the work examples, and do this before making the start. You want to see the whole ask from beginning to end when you embark and start putting in time and effort. Be sure to follow the guidance and make sure you understand the question. In the narrative, we're interested in impact, so be specific. You will score higher. Involve your colleagues. If you're sourcing data from elsewhere in the organization, consider forming a small working group with these contacts. In the workplace data survey, it can be a bit technical, but there is lots of guidance. It certainly is the kind of thing that can be delegated under supervision. The policies and practices surveys requires more familiarity with the policies and activities of your organization, especially writing the narrative elements. It also scores more highly, so put your effort there. Essentially what you're saying is put your effort into policies and practices and delegate the technical bits of workplace data. If you're preparing a complete benchmark submission in race and gender, do the workplace data surveys together. It's highly likely that your data sources are the same for all the workplace data surveys, so it makes sense to do them at the same time. Similarly, there is a lot of overlap between the policies and practices surveys, so it makes sense to do both of those together, both of those being the race and gender and policies and practices together. Then also do error checks on your workplace data submission. That's the quantitative element in workplace data. So, for example, check, does male plus female add up to all employees? Simple checks are explained in the guidance. We use these tests when we receive your submission and we query anomalies. So it will save time to check before submitting. It's also a very good way to make sure that you have understood the question correctly. Oh, I've gone too fast there. The last point there was to please ask us. We really understand the benchmark, and it will probably take us a lot quicker to answer your questions, and we wouldn't want you spending lots of time trying to work out something that we could answer in a few minutes. Right, so those are the main tips. We do have this guidance in a document as well, and it is included in your document pack that we supply to all participants.
Thank you, Thomas. That was really helpful. That actually brings us to the end of our presentation. We will now open again for questions. While we're waiting, Thomas, is there a deadline for benchmarking?
Yeah, there is not a deadline. Perhaps you've done the benchmark previously or you've heard about it previously. We used to run the benchmark during the summer. However, we have now changed the service. Organizations can now benchmark at any time in the year that works best for you. So this gives you the flexibility to time your submission with your annual calendar, financial year reporting cycles, and resource allocations. That said, many participants have said that summer and autumn is the best time to benchmark. This is partly why we are having this webinar now, because a number of organizations are getting ready to benchmark or have just begun. And I know, for example, that that a couple of those organizations are in this webinar now.
That's good to hear. I actually have one more question for you. What if an organization can't answer all the questions?
That is a common challenge, especially for organizations that haven't benchmarked before or are at the beginning of their diversity journey. You can answer as much or as little of the benchmark as you are able to. And besides the insight you gain for benchmarking, it is also a very powerful gap analysis tool that highlights areas where more work is needed. So if you cannot answer all the questions or have limited resources, we do also have a list of questions we recommend participants prioritize. So there are about 24 questions in the workplace data benchmark, and I think there are up to 27 or 28 in policies and practices. The prioritized list, if you are short on resource or time, cuts that down to about 10 each. So we can advise you around prioritizing certain questions.
So that actually brings us to the end of the webinar. Just to let you know, we will be emailing you these slides soon, and please do feel free to contact us if you have any questions at all, and any questions that we didn't get to today. We are very happy to pick up individually and get in touch with you afterwards. We look forward to hearing from you, and thank you once again all for your time today.
Thanks everyone. Please do get in touch if you have any questions, as Priya said. Bye bye then.